All right, so today we're going to dig into a story that really gets you thinking about leadership.
Yeah.
And what makes a good leader and what makes a bad leader.
Right.
We're talking Taiwanese university volleyball, and we're going to be looking at one team in particular that had this really shocking fall from grace.
Oh, wow.
They went from almost being champions to totally bombing out in the first round.
Oh, interesting.
In just 1 year.
Wow, in 1 year. So what happened?
Yeah, that's what we're going to try to figure out.
Okay.
And what's really fascinating about this is we're going to be looking at this story through the eyes of one of the players on the team.
Oh, wow. First-hand account.
Yeah, so we're going to be looking at an article written by Lin Gui.
Lin Gui, okay.
And they were a player on the Fujian Catholic University volleyball team.
Okay.
And the article is titled, Why Did Last Year's Runner-Up Fujian Catholic University Stop at the Preliminary Round?
Very pointed title.
Yeah, and it really doesn't hold back.
Okay.
So our mission today is to look at this article.
Okay.
And try to piece together what exactly went wrong.
Yeah, how do you go from almost winning it all to completely falling apart like that?
Right, and Lin Gui points to 3 main areas that they think contributed to the team's downfall.
Right. I'm all ears, lay it on me.
Okay, so those are
Yeah.
playing time, team atmosphere, and winning strategy.
All right, so like the tactics and stuff.
Exactly. Got it. So let's start with playing time.
Okay, sounds good.
Lin Gui argues that the coach played favorites big time.
Oh, so like he had his preferred players.
Yeah, and this wasn't just, like, oh, this guy's having a good day, let's play him more.
Right.
It was like blatant favoritism.
Okay, so like some players were just getting sidelined no matter what.
Pretty much, and it seems like it really messed with the whole team dynamic.
Yeah, I mean, you can imagine how that would breed resentment and distrust.
For sure.
Like, why are we even bothering if the coach has already decided who he likes?
Right, and Lin Gui actually experienced this firsthand.
Oh, so they were one of the players who got benched.
Yeah, the previous year, they were a key player.
Okay.
They helped the team get that runner-up title.
So they were good.
Yeah, but then this year, their playing time was like drastically cut.
Wow, so they went from star player to riding the bench.
Exactly, and Lin Gui specifically mentions a player wearing jersey number 14.
Okay, number 14.
Who just seemed to be the coach's, like, absolute favorite.
So this player could do no wrong in the coach's eyes.
Pretty much.
Even if they were having a bad game or making mistakes.
Yeah, it seems like no matter what, this player got preferential treatment.
Yeah, that's definitely going to rub some people the wrong way.
Right, you're sending the message that some players are just more valuable than others.
Regardless of how they're actually performing.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got favoritism, we've got players getting benched for no reason.
Now, the coach did try to defend his choices.
Oh, really? What did he say?
He said that there was limited practice space and time. And so he couldn't give everyone equal opportunities.
Right, so like not everyone's going to get the same amount of playing time.
Exactly.
Okay. I mean, I guess that makes sense on the surface.
Right, but then Lin Gui brings up this counterexample.
I love a good contradiction.
That makes this excuse seem kind of flimsy.
Okay, so what happened?
So there was this friendly match against Mingqi University of Technology, which was considered to be a pretty weak team.
Okay, so low stakes.
Yeah, and guess what? He kept his starting lineup.
Okay.
For like almost the whole game.
So even when he had the chance to give other players a shot, he stuck with his favorites.
It's like he was using these matches as like personal training sessions for the players he liked.
And ignoring the rest of the team.
Right, and that's just setting those players up to fail.
Yeah, it's like you're telling them, you're not worth my time or energy.
And that brings us to the next issue.
Yeah.
The team atmosphere.
Uh-oh. I have a feeling this is where things get ugly.
Yeah, it's not pretty.
Okay, I'm ready to spill the tea.
So you can imagine with all this unequal treatment going on, things were pretty tense.
Right. I mean, resentment and jealousy can be a toxic combo.
For sure. And it went beyond just like, some awkward silences.
So it was more than just players being unhappy.
Yeah. Lin Gui describes this culture of verbal abuse.
Oh, wow.
That was just way beyond tough coaching.
So the coach was actually like verbally abusive to the players.
Yeah, and it was constant and it was personal.
Okay, yeah. That's a whole other level of messed up.
Right, it wasn't constructive criticism. It was just like tearing people down.
Wow. And that coming from the coach, the person who's supposed to be like your mentor and guide.
Right. It can really mess with your head, especially when you're young.
Yeah, for sure.
And it wasn't just the words themselves.
Right.
It was also about, like, the power dynamic.
Okay, explain that.
The coach holds all the power.
Yeah.
He decides who plays, who gets opportunities.
Right.
And he was using that power to, like, belittle and humiliate the players.
That's just straight up bullying.
Pretty much. And it created this atmosphere of fear and anxiety.
Yeah, I bet.
Where players were constantly walking on eggshells, afraid to make a mistake or say the wrong thing.
So it's no wonder they weren't playing well.
Right. And one of the most disturbing examples that Lin Guo talks about,
oh gosh, what happens?
Is the treatment of the starting setter.
Okay.
This player had a foot injury that wasn't fully healed.
Okay.
But the coach threatened to kick him off the team if he didn't practice.
Wow, are you serious? That's crazy.
Yeah, and not only is it, like, ethically questionable.
Yeah, you're putting winning above the player's health.
Right, it's also just bad coaching.
Yeah, an injured player can't perform at their best.
Exactly, and you risk making the injury worse.
Right.
But it gets worse.
Oh no, it gets worse.
The coach forced the setter to play in a match, even though he was clearly unwell.
So on top of the injury,
yeah,
he was sick.
And the player was complaining of a stiff neck.
Like something was wrong.
Yeah, and the coach just brushed it off.
Wow, so he was injured and sick, and the coach still made him play.
Yeah, it shows a complete lack of empathy and understanding.
Right, like he didn't care about the player as a person.
Yeah, it was all about winning.
At any cost.
And this all ties back to the favoritism.
Right, because I bet the coach wouldn't have done that to one of his favorites.
Exactly. He treated his favorites with kid gloves.
Okay.
But the bench players were constantly being criticized, even for, like, tiny mistakes.
So there was a double standard.
Yeah, and Lin Guo actually describes this moment during a friendly match against National Taiwan Normal University.
Okay.
And the coach finally gave the bench players, mostly first years, a chance to play.
Finally.
But then when they lost,
yeah,
he gathered them together and said something like,
okay,
you guys think you're so good, prove it to me. Don't say I didn't give you a chance.
Wow, that's so messed up.
Right. It's like he was setting them up to fail.
Yeah, give them a chance, but then make them feel terrible when they don't live up to your impossible standards.
And you can just feel Lin Guo's disappointment in the article when they're talking about this.
Yeah, I bet.
Like the whole team's morale was just crushed.
Yeah, because it's not just about winning or losing at that point.
Right.
It's about feeling valued and respected.
Exactly. And it seems like the coach completely failed in that regard.
Yeah, it sounds like he created a really toxic environment.
Totally. And that brings us to the third issue that Lin Guo brings up.
Okay, hit me with it.
The coach's winning strategy.
Or lack thereof.
Oh, lack thereof.
From what you've been saying, it sounds like his obsession with certain players might have actually hurt the team's overall strategy.
Yeah, you're totally right.
Interesting.
Like his focus on a few players and his neglect of other key positions actually backfired.
Okay. I'm really curious to hear how this all played out on the court.
Yeah, so let's dive into that after the break.
Sounds good. I'm hooked.
Okay, so we're seeing how this favoritism, this toxic atmosphere,
actually started impacting the team on the court.
Right. So this isn't just about bad vibes. This is about bad coaching decisions.
Exactly. And one of the biggest issues that Lin Guo points to is the coach's failure to address the team's weaknesses.
Oh, so he didn't even try to, like, fix the problems.
It seems like he was so focused on his star players that he just completely ignored the rest of the team.
Oh, so like he was so focused on his stars that he forgot about the rest of the constellation?
Exactly.
Right.
And a team is only as strong as its weakest link.
For sure.
And if you don't strengthen those weaker areas, you're going to have problems.
Absolutely.
And Lin Guo gives this specific example of the middle blocker position.
Okay.
Everyone knew they needed a strong middle blocker.
Right.
But the coach just didn't invest the time in training players for that role.
So he didn't even try.
It's like he was so blinded by his belief in his chosen few that he couldn't see the bigger picture. I see. So he was like, oh, my stars are so bright. It doesn't matter if we have any other players.
Right. And this brings us to another key point.
Okay.
The over-reliance on player number 14.
Ah, yes, the coach's favorite.
Lin Guo says that even though the coach acknowledged that they shouldn't depend on just one player, in reality, he put so much pressure on this one athlete.
So his actions didn't match his words.
Totally. And that's just a dangerous strategy.
For sure. What happens when that one player has an off day or gets injured?
Exactly. The whole team is vulnerable.
You're putting all your eggs in one basket.
And Lin Guo argues that this over-reliance on player 14
Yeah.
led to instability in receiving.
Okay.
And just a lack of tactical flexibility.
So they became predictable.
Right. Their opponents could easily figure them out.
Because they were always relying on the same player.
Exactly.
Interesting.
And here's where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
Remember how Lin Guo was benched for most of the season?
Yeah.
Well, in a surprising twist,
Okay.
the coach finally let them play in the last 3 sets of their final match.
So he finally came to his senses.
Well, it's hard to say.
Okay.
The match was against the University of Taipei.
Okay.
And the team's performance noticeably improved when Lin Guo was playing.
So the coach, who had ignored this player all season, suddenly puts them in during the most crucial match.
Right, and they start playing better.
Wow, what a twist.
It's like their receiving stabilized.
Okay.
Their attacks became more varied.
So they were less predictable.
Yeah, they were able to put up a much stronger fight.
Almost like a final act of defiance from the coach's own strategy.
Right.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, it was too little too late.
Oh, so they still lost.
The team was already on the brink of elimination.
Right.
And this last-minute change wasn't enough to save them.
It's a reminder that a coach's ego can be a powerful thing.
Yeah.
Even when it's clear that their plan isn't working, they might just double down.
And it ends up hurting the whole team.
And that brings us to the final chapter of this saga.
Okay.
The coach's behavior during the tournament itself.
It seems like the confrontation that the team had with him.
Oh, right. They confronted him about his behavior.
Yeah.
Okay.
Really shook him.
So they called him out.
Yeah.
And how did he react to that?
Not in a good way.
This is where things get even more bizarre.
It's like he completely checked out.
What do you mean?
He didn't attend the pre-tournament practice or the team meetings.
So he was just absent.
Yeah, and during the tournament itself, he barely interacted with the team as a whole.
Like he gave up on them.
He just focused on player number 14.
So he just gave up on coaching the team.
And just focused on his one favorite player.
Wow. So even that wasn't enough to get them the win.
Nope.
It's almost like he was saying, I'm done with you.
Yeah, and there are these little details that Lin Guo points out that really highlight his detachment. For example, he was completely unaware of a key tactic that the opposing team was using.
So he wasn't even scouting his opponents.
Nope.
Why?
And he didn't even realize that one of his starting players was struggling with gastroenteritis.
Oh my gosh, so he was sick?
Yeah.
And the coach didn't even know.
Yeah.
So not only was he not emotionally present,
right,
he wasn't even paying attention to the basics.
It's like, how can a coach be so out of touch
with his own team?
With his own team.
Yeah.
It's almost unbelievable. And you can only imagine how the players must have felt.
Yeah, like abandoned and unsupported.
But their coach had just given up on them.
Wow.
And that's really the lasting impression that Lin Guo leaves us with.
Okay.
They talk about this profound sense of disappointment.
Yeah.
Not for themselves, but for the team as a whole.
Right. So it wasn't just about losing.
Yeah.
It was about the coach's betrayal.
Exactly. They were disappointed in how he treated everyone and how that ultimately led to their downfall.
A sad ending to a promising season.
Yeah. And it really makes you think about the true meaning of leadership.
Right, because it's about more than just winning.
Yeah.
It's about creating a positive and supportive environment where everyone can thrive.
Totally. And it seems like this coach completely missed the mark.
Yeah, it's a cautionary tale for sure.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a really thought-provoking conversation.
We hope it's given you some food for thought. It'd be easy to think that, like, after a season like this, Lin Guo's biggest regret would be not getting to play more.
Yeah.
You know, or maybe, like, dwelling on specific moments where they felt like they could have done better.
Yeah.
But that's not what comes across at all in their reflection. What's really interesting about this article is that Lin Guo is just overwhelmed with this sense of disappointment.
Okay.
Not for themselves, but for the team.
I see.
They talk about, you know, seeing their teammates suffer and the team lose.
Yeah.
And not because of a lack of talent or effort, but because of the coach.
Wow. So they're placing the blame squarely on the coach's shoulders.
Yeah. And it really gets at this idea of, like, you know, there's this collective responsibility when you're on a team.
It's not just about you.
It's not just about you. It's about the group.
Exactly.
And when the coach undermines that shared vision.
Right.
It's not just one person that suffers.
Everyone suffers.
It's everyone.
The whole team.
And that's where Lin Guo's frustration with the coach's hypocrisy really comes through.
Oh, interesting.
So the coach had this saying that he would always repeat. It was like, we celebrate together when we win, and we shoulder the responsibility together when we lose.
Right, classic coach talk.
But Lin Guo points out he never actually took responsibility.
For the losses.
For the team's failure.
Right? So it was all talk.
Yeah.
No action.
And to make matters worse.
No, what else happened?
Lin Guo talks about the coach's attitude after the tournament as just completely dismissive.
Oh, wow.
There was no post-game pep talk, no attempt to address the team's issues, no sense of closure.
Wow.
He just drove back to Taipei.
He just left.
And left the players to deal with the emotional fallout.
That's rough.
It's like he was saying, I'm done with you.
Wow, what a terrible message to send to young athletes.
So we've gone through this whole story, this team's dramatic fall from grace. And it's more than just bad coaching.
Right. It's a lesson in what not to do as a leader.
Exactly. And it makes you think about, what are the long-term consequences of this kind of coaching style?
On young athletes.
On young athletes.
Yeah. How do you recover from that?
Right. How do we create more supportive environments?
Yeah.
In competitive sports.
Where winning isn't everything.
Yeah.
Exactly. Where it's not just about the scoreboard.
Right. It's about the player's well-being.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Absolutely.
We hope it's given you some food for thought.